We're obviously on an extraordinarily tight schedule, and so we're going to try and move to expedite things. Before I do, I just want to put on the record how much all of us appreciate what all of you do and how well it's done. We are very grateful for the manner in which this house is run professionally, and we've got a great clerk, we've got a great sergeant of arms, and we've got a great chief administrative officer, and that's a bipartisan agreement. I'm going to ask you to dispense with your statements. If you have any points you care to make, we'll certainly provide an opportunity during questions, but I want to allow members, since we're going to try and move this along before votes, to have the opportunity to present whatever questions they have directly to you. I want to begin by recognizing my good friend and the ranking member of the Appropriations Committee, and one of the people I treasure having a relationship, my good friend from New York, Ms. Laura.
Those kind words are so overwhelming, Mr. Chairman. You know it's mutual, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. And I also would like to thank the hardworking people who really make this place run. Thank you very much. And a pleasure to be here with Ranking Member Wasserman Schultz as well. First of all, did I congratulate you on your new role as chair of the subcommittee? This committee is too often overlooked as the smallest, but it's important in ensuring our branch of government remains the first among equals in our democracy, and this is a large task. And I know you're up for it, there is no question. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity just to say a few words. The passage of the 2014 Consolidated Appropriations Act was a baby step in the right direction in reversing sequestration's detrimental impact on Congress's ability to operate most effectively. The House of Representatives had the least amount of sequester relief, leaving our institution at a disadvantage to the other branches of government and even the Senate. After years of cuts to members' offices and committees, I'm pleased this year's budget includes a modest increase of 2% in member representational allowances, or MRAs. But I would remind our members that office budgets have been cut $106 million since 2010. The agencies funded through this bill provide the critical security and support necessary for the House of Representatives to function. Indeed, the men and women of these non-political agencies provide everything from legal counsel to members and staff to preservation of the heritage of the House through archival services. Not funding these agencies is politically expedient but irresponsible based on our duty to serve as stewards of this institution as well as our constituents. Additionally, I welcome the return of normalcy to this subcommittee now that we do not have to argue about the legal fees associated with the Defense of Marriage Act. I look forward to today's hearing. Yield back.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to go to my good friend and partner on this committee, the ranking member, Ms. Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, are we going to just go to right to questions because I don't have
Absolutely. If you have a point you care to make, please feel free to do it. But yes, go right to questions.
I don't have any opening remarks. They might have written me one, but hold on, let me just scan this real quick. Yeah, I'll just echo the remarks of the chairman and just get right to it. It's really, I do echo the comments of the chairman. We have a remarkably talented and committed leadership professionally and administratively for the House of Representatives. We're really fortunate. I had an opportunity to talk with the new CAO who I worked with in his previous role in the Speaker's office. Just a couple of questions. One, Mr. Cassidy, on the Longworth cafeteria, there's a request in to renovate Longworth for about $482,000 in the serving area, and we just renovated it in December of 2013. How often do we have to redo the salad bar and the seating area? I mean, $482,000 is quite a bit of money. So what's wrong with Longworth that it needs renovation again?
Ms. Wasserman Schultz, thank you. The renovations that were done at the end of the year were cosmetic in nature, and they were paid for in their entirety by the concessionaire restaurant associates.
Oh, okay.
The request in this, the request this year, the $482,000, would fund the replacement of salad bars, refrigerated systems, sort of the front end serving equipment, most of which is at the end of its useful life.
And our contract with them requires us to provide those
It does.
facilities.
It does. We are also right now in the process, using last year, or the current fiscal year's funding, we're in the process of replacing dishwashing and pot scrubbing units that are more than 20 years old.
Gotcha, okay. Now, I don't want to belabor the greening of the Capitol project back and forth, but I think one of the things that is the most glaring from the transition out of the, and there was a lot to be said about not using corn oil-based silverware, but do we have to use styrofoam products in the cafeterias? I mean, there is no fast food restaurant in the nation that uses styrofoam. It does not biodegrade. Whether we agree or disagree on global warming and climate change, everybody knows that it is bad for the environment to continue to produce waste that is made of styrofoam. I mean, can't we just transition to cardboard so that at least we have biodegradable material for the most part?
That's certainly something I'd be happy to take a look at.
I mean, really, that shouldn't be political. It isn't a question of whether, it's just obnoxious at this point. And it's just bad for the environment. Styrofoam is terrible. And we should take a page from Wendy's, McDonald's, and Burger King's book. So.
We'll be happy to look at that.
Thank you. Mr. Irving, I wanted to just talk with you about access points, because that continues to be a very significant source of frustration now that we really have fully funded you, and the proposal on the table is to do the same. You have access points, like there are 2 in Cannon, a number around the rest of the Capitol complex. Members hear complaints from our constituents about the length of the lines, to say nothing of how tough it is for our staff to get in the buildings. So are you reevaluating the opening of access points now that you have more resources?
Absolutely, we are.
Okay.
And we're looking at that reevaluation in the context of other priorities of the police, but certainly reevaluating all those access points.
As in you have
the
plans to open access points that are now closed?
We're looking at the impact of the lines currently and options to possibly look at opening some doors for some limited hours during especially the heightened area of periods of rush
We're
hour.
about to hit spring break.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's the season in which obviously our lines get even longer.
Yes.
And especially with the Cannon Tunnel. And I know we made accommodations for the staff in the Cannon Tunnel, but we know what those lines are going to be like, and if we don't have a dedicated staff, instead of putting them at the front of the line, if we don't have a dedicated mag for staff, it's going to be a problem.
No, well, we'll certainly keep you posted, but we are looking at reassessing that.
Thank you. Ms. Haas, welcome again. The only thing I wanted to ask you is about the implementation of the Stock Act.
Sure.
Because, we've had some revisions to the Stock Act, but obviously it's a significant thing, which probably dramatically increased your workload. So how's the implementation going?
Absolutely. Well, I'm happy to say the implementation is going very well. As we were required by law to implement the system effective January of this year, so the system is up. This is an electronic system for filing financial disclosures as well as other documents that are required. So it is in use. Right now, the periodic transaction reports are being filed at a rate of about 49% of what's been filed have been filed electronically. So we are continuing to provide enhancements to the system leading up to the May 15th filing deadline. We also have a plan in place to get the word out about the system, to market it to not only to the members and staff here, but as you probably know, other Ledge Branch agencies also file with the House. So to make sure that the word's out to encourage people to use the system. We believe we've created a user-friendly system, but to your point, it did require a lot of resources. This has been, in the last 22 months, it has really been our priority. And we did the majority of the work in-house, but it was a significant impact both to time and to money, and we had to put some of our other projects on hold to be able to implement this one time.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I just have two more questions.
Sure.
Mr. Cassidy, on the hearing room renovations, we're still renovating hearing rooms 8 years after I was chair of the committee. And so where are we? I know the request includes $2.3 million And what's the timeline for wrapping those up? Because we have to have probably gotten most of them done at this point, correct?
Well, regrettably, as I understand it, we're a long way from wrapping it up because it's an ongoing process. And yes, most of the hearing rooms, all of the hearing rooms, in fact, have received audiovisual upgrades of one sort or another. Some of them have actually been done twice. These systems have a useful, yes, we're in the second round on some of these hearing rooms because the early installations in those committees have exceeded their useful life. In some cases, they're not supported. It's impossible for the recording studio, which maintains those facilities, to get replacement parts. Just yesterday, the Committee on Financial Services had its witness mics go out in the middle of the hearing. That's one. Well, it's happened at the Budget Committee as well. It happened when Ben Bernanke was testifying late last year. Unfortunately, those systems are heavily used. Many of them are 7 and 8 and 10 years old. And what we found is that you've really got to replace them on a cycle. If we had all the money to do all the hearing rooms this year, then we'd get a break for 7 or 8 or 10 years perhaps if we were lucky. But much in the same way that agencies that have to replace IT infrastructure know, when you're doing it on a as funds become available basis, you do a little bit this year, a little bit next year. And by the time you get towards the end of the line, it's time to start over again. It's a little bit like painting a long bridge. So I don't think we're going to have the opportunity to wrap it up, as you put it, anytime soon.
Are there any hearing rooms that have had no work done yet and haven't?
There are a couple of subcommittee rooms that haven't been done in better than a decade. But for example, this year we're going to
Tell
do.
which ones those are when you have a meeting in them.
That's right. We're trying to get to those too. In fact, Chairman. In fact, Chairman Smith of Texas, the Science Committee, has just committed his own committee's funds to replace all of the electronic infrastructure in his subcommittee hearing room. The architect will handle the infrastructure problems. One point I ought to make the committee aware of, because this really crosses jurisdictions between the CAO and the AOC. In many cases, when you upgrade the AV systems, you have to go into the ceilings or the walls. By law, when we go into the ceilings and walls, we then have to do asbestos abatement. And if we make structural changes to the room, we then, in many cases, have to do ADA compliance, which can add hundreds of thousands of dollars. The OOC has given us some forbearance on that until we renovate a room, but once we renovate, then we're in for the whole hog in some cases. So it's a big, expensive proposition. You'll be happy to know, Mr. Chairman, that the #1 priority this year is upgrading the AV systems in the Appropriations full committee hearing room.
That's a wise choice.
I certainly thought so. It was one of my earliest decisions.
Very thoughtfully delivered at this moment, too.
We're going to do the Appropriations Committee room and the Ways and Means Committee hearing room, which is an alternate chamber for the full House this year, as well as Financial Services.
Thank you. And just the last question, Mr. Cassidy, and then I'm done, Mr. Chairman. We stopped doing compensation reviews a number of years ago. In the FY 2014 Omnibus Bill, executive branch employees were allowed to receive a cost of living increase of 1%. I mean, there are transparent increases for the executive branch, but because members make their own decisions based on how they decide to spend money in their MRA, we really don't have any idea, because there's no compensation study anymore, to know how our employees are being paid comparable to executive branch or even the Senate. We already know that oftentimes we're at a competitive disadvantage from previous compensation studies. And I know you were not CAO when the decision was made to end those, but I mean, is there a way for us to consider starting to do those again so that we can not be at a competitive disadvantage? And when it's transparent, it's a lot easier for us to at least members should still be making their own decisions. But if members and employees have an opportunity to see the comparison to their fellow comparable positions in other agencies, then we have a better shot at retaining and attracting the top talent.
Absolutely, Ms. Wasserman-Schultz. In fact, as I think all of you know, I spent the bulk of my career here in personal offices, most of that time as Chief of Staff to several members. I found those compensation studies to be among the most useful tools that were available to me. I was concerned at the time when the decision was made to step away from that process. And I've already advised our staff that one way or another we are going to conduct a compensation study this year and make that available to to members and chiefs of staff
That's great.
at the start of next year. So
Thank you very much.
I can't tell you how we're going to get it done, but we are going to get it done.
That's good news. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Moran and Mr. Stewart have joined us a little late, so you're aware we dispense with opening statements. Got votes coming up, so I want to give the members time to go directly to questions. So, Mr. Stewart, I'm going to call on you next, and whatever questions you care to address. Or if you like, I'll give you time to think and go to Mr. Moran, who's had a little more time to think about this. I'll let you make the call.
The only question I have is, what is the meaning of life? And if you can...
What is the meaning of life?
We might go to Mr. Moran, right? The Irish actually always know what the meaning of life is, so. But did you have any questions?
No, it may be after.
Yeah, and if you want to, that's fine. If I could, then, Mr. Moran?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to know if you've done an analysis of what proportion of the committee and personal staff switched over to the Affordable Care Act programs from the traditional health insurance that they had. Do we have a sense now of what kind of transitions that occurred, or convulsions, some would call it?
Yes, sir, we do. As you know, all the members of the Congress of the House were designated for designated to the exchange. There were almost 50 members who in the previous Congress participated in FEHBP who are not currently enrolled in the DC HealthLink Exchange. So all the rest of those, more than 300 members, have actually purchased their insurance through this DC HealthLinks exchange. So at the staff level, we've got about 4,200 House staff who were designated for the exchange who have actually enrolled, and another roughly 450 or so who were previously in FEHBP and are not enrolled in the DC HealthLink exchange. And although we don't know, we suspect in most cases those are individuals who either went on to a spouse's plan, or if they're younger staff, perhaps went on to a parent's plan. So roughly 360 members are in the exchange, and about 4,200 plus House staff are in the exchange. The payroll and benefits staff in the CAO organization worked tirelessly through the late fall, all of the month of November, December, and into January, worked nights and weekends to help a large number, primarily staff, but in a couple of cases members, a large number of staff who encountered real difficulty enrolling in the DC HealthLink exchange, in many cases through no fault of their own. It's not clear that the DC exchange was ready for us. It certainly wasn't designed for such a large number of employees of a single employer, but our staff has worked closely with theirs, and we've narrowed the number of staff who are still not enrolled to literally a dozen or two. And although there are deadlines, as you know, for enrolling, and after those deadlines, you'll lose the opportunity until the next open season. In this case, because it's evident to us and to DC that folks who haven't yet enrolled have been trying, those deadlines are going to be waived, and in fact, as soon as we can get the last remaining staff members enrolled, they'll go into the system with no loss of coverage, because there's a retroactive provision.
Mr. Dillon, you have a follow-up?
Please.
I'm very curious, in addition to these individual statistics, members obviously had the option of their staff going in or not going in. Can you tell us roughly how that broke down in terms of how many offices decided to stay with the pre-existing federal insurance that they had, how many opted into the exchange?
That was going to be a follow-up. I'm glad you asked it, Tom. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I can provide those numbers for the record. That's not data that we pretty carefully avoided compiling that data because we didn't want it used for political purposes, and I think you can understand how some folks might have wanted to do that, but we can make that information available.
I'd appreciate
Happy
that.
to do so.
Yeah, maybe just to the committee members.
Sure.
So I agree, you don't want it to be, that there's any possible way that we can flog ourselves. We usually see that.
Well, for example,
And then give the public at large an opportunity to follow up as well.
Well, for example, at the outset of this process, we made clear to the payroll benefits staff, we didn't want any lists developed, for example, that showed X percentage of Republican members or X percentage of Democratic members did what. And as you know, in some cases, in most cases, it was all or nothing. a member or a chairman made a designation for their entire staff. But there were some exceptions for long-serving employees and special circumstances. And we'd be happy to make any of that information available to the committee.
I'd appreciate if you did that at the committee level.
Certainly.
Subcommittee level.
Subcommittee level.
Yeah, subcommittee level.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The tighter the circle, the better, I think.
I think we can let the chair and ranking member take a look at it, and then they can decide to the extended dissemination of information. I trust the two of you. Ms. Wasserman-Schultz asked about the Capitol Police. What is the distribution between regular pay and overtime now? There was a point at which overtime pay had gotten pretty substantial. And in fact, people were, in my view, performing regular daily functions and somehow were on overtime. Could you give us some insight into that?
Yes, over the years, the mission of the Capitol Police has expanded to the point that due to ongoing threats, as assignments were created, overtime really had to be paid for just normal daily operations, such as door openings.
Yeah.
As their mission expanded to other threats, not only threat assessment, but canine, magnetometers, bomb explosives, all the other functions that the Capitol Police has, just to open up the doors every day required a pretty healthy degree of overtime. So once sequestration hit, we looked at sort of the core mission and worked our way out and realized that there were some doors that we could possibly close because they were not used, not accessed as frequently as others. So when we prioritized, that's really where we cut. And frankly, that was a huge reduction in overtime. We reduced overtime by quite a bit. Now the Capitol Police still does pay overtime to open up doors every day, but it's far, far reduced. And we're certainly going to now look at the ongoing priorities of the department. A couple of things the department has not done in the last couple of years is train. There's a lot of in-service training, a lot of perishable skills that need to be honed. So we need to get back into training. Hiring, there's been a moratorium on hiring, so we need to really get back to hiring because the number of officers is decreasing to the point that operationally it's going to impact. So we've got to get back to training, hiring, and so looking at those priorities, we'll certainly look at reassessing the doors and other assignments that have been cut, and certainly the impact of that. We really, really appreciate that and recognize it.
Yeah, I appreciate you looking at it. I remember when I was mayor of Alexandria, I came across something that a whole lot of municipalities experience with firefighters. Oftentimes they would live in areas where the housing costs were much reduced, but it meant it was a substantial commute, so they would essentially work about 3 days a week, and they'd have worked out their overtime and have a second job and the like, and it was not the most efficient use of our resources, frankly. So I'm glad, but the ranking member tells me that we're going to have a hearing on the Capitol Police specifically, so I can hold my questions for that. The only other question I'd like to, I'd be interested in is the distribution of the MRA between salaries and office equipment, travel, all of that kind. I'd just be interested to see how it shakes out. I don't know if you have any numbers, but it'd be interesting.
I'd be happy to provide those, Mr.
Yeah.
Brand. We break the expenditures by member offices down into what's known as budget object classes, and can identify with great specificity how much an average member spends, or any particular member spends, on each of the things that the MRA is used for.
I think that would be helpful to know, and I'd actually be interested in what the average salary we're paying staff now is. I know it's, an average doesn't tell you a whole lot, but maybe even a little, bell curve in terms of what normal salary is and how that bell curve
Would the
shapes up.
gentleman,
Yeah, please.
It would actually, because we haven't had the benefit of compensation studies, we don't know this, but it would actually be interesting to see that by position, because it's, how are we doing at the staff assistant level compared to the chief of staff level, for
Yeah,
example, or a legislative director.
Yeah, yeah.
Certainly, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'd just, as an Alexandria resident and taxpayer, I'd like to thank Congressman Moran for his efforts to keep police overtime in Alexandria under his In fact, I'm personally honored, not only to be here today, but to be well represented. I have both my congressmen here. I have, my congressman during the week is Congressman Moran, and Dr. Harris is my congressman on the weekends. So I feel very well represented.
Sounds like you're well compensated.
That's very good.
I'll
Well,
let you and my wife talk about it.
excellent observation, Mr. Cassidy. Very good. I appreciate your testimony and your service, and I won't pursue that, but I thank you for providing the information. Thanks, Mr. Cassidy.
Mr. Stewart, you've had a chance to collect your thoughts, if you care to ask any questions.
You know, I think from talking to my staff, the questions we had have been answered already, previous to my getting here, and in deference of time, Mr. Chairman, we'll just yield back.
Ms. Roby, would you have any questions you'd care to submit?
I don't, but I do just want to take an opportunity to tell you how much I appreciate you, Mr. Irving, and the challenges that you have in front of you. I think a lot of what you do, members of Congress don't think about every single day. We take for granted all that goes on around us and all that we're shielded from because of your diligence and your work and your bee dance that you have to manage, so to speak, between security issues and everything else you have on your plate. And so, you know, I look forward to working with you. I look forward to continuing to have one-on-one conversations with you about how this subcommittee and the Appropriations Committee can help you and the challenges that you have. But more than anything, I just want you to know I have, as I told you one-on-one, I have a deep respect for law enforcement and for those that are willing to put a shield on their body that says, I'm going to take a bullet for you, and walk out their door every day. And again, this committee oversees the guts of the operation, and you play a key role. So more than anything, I just want to thank you for all the sleepless nights you may have and your concern over all the issues that we take for granted. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman, for your kind words. We'll certainly keep you posted.
Yes, sir.
Does any additional question? A couple of remarks from me quickly. We'll undoubtedly be submitting some questions for the record since we've had an abbreviated session. I think other members will probably want to do the same thing that weren't able to get here given the votes and the fact that it's the last day of the week. I do really want to associate myself with ranking members' remarks about access points. I think we all have staff and people that run into that problem. So if you could give that extra consideration and look, it's you know, it really throws the whole day off when large groups are coming through and they're arriving late. So whatever you can do, and whatever we can do, honestly, in helping you achieve that goal, I would love to hear. Finally, just seriously, let's just end where we began. Thank all three of you and the staffs that you represent for what you do on a regular basis, what you have done for this institution, and how in a difficult budget time you've kept it up and operational. We're all as very proud of the professionalism that you have in all the areas that you represent. So thanks again, and boy, are you guys lucky or what? Yeah, I think you can thank Liz. I will say the subcommittee
Went through
stands.
like greased lightning.
Subcommittee stands adjourned until March the 24th, when we'll hear testimony from the United States Capitol Police. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.